point is that this is a huge loss of trust happening as the mainstream media invested itself making fun of us and saying, Limbaugh used to say the CFR didn't exist. Now it's all over TV, pushing open world government as the solution, to all problems. Denying Bilderberg, denying North American Union, denying NAFTA superhighways as they're being built and the billboards are up. Because they've done this and because the media itself a lot of the time was actually just ignorant, as you were saying, and their editors were lying to them. Oh, don't do a story on that. That's just schizophrenic crazies who believe in space aliens. That whole line is now imploding, and so the media is losing that much more credibility, and then they're trying to play catch-up, and that only exposes the fact they covered this up that much more.
Well, this is the Guardian's line, isn't it? And I think what they've done here is they've been mulling this over for years. A lot of Guardian people, have been looking at this thinking, hang on a minute, this is a sort of fascist conspiracy against Britain, and is this something we should take seriously and deal with? And it seems to me at last they bit the bullet and grasped the nettle, and they've decided, look, we are going to actually fund and send a reporter there to get the gen. I mean, the Guardian is really shining at the moment. I don't know if you've been following all this massive MP's expenses scandal here in Britain, have you?
Yeah, and they're also doing reports about the U.S. government torturing children, and they're doing stories about the government being corrupt and Big Brother, and they're doing stories about staged terror attacks. And I think it's a crisis of conscience there at the Guardian. I think they also understand we're the future. Alternative media, telling it like it is, laying the cards down on the table. I think they want to survive into the future. And people like the New York Times that are still basically saying none of this exists, that's why they're going bankrupt right now. Tony Gosling of Bilderberg.org, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll talk to you.
One little last thing, Alex, because this week the Guardian has exposed that the scandal here in the UK a hard drive was stolen from the House of Commons with all these MPs' expenses on it. It was actually stolen apparently by this ex-SAS major who has links obviously to the MI5 and MI6, who is called John Wick, and it's actually been stolen by an ex-SAS guy. So this is private security, quite possibly working with, and almost certainly working with MI6, attempting to foment a political crisis. I think this is fascinating, and it's nice to see that there's still some decent investigative journalism out there.
Now, let me stop you. I have to be honest. I get so busy that I had read about all the news headlines on Drudge about how they were going after members of Parliament for buying $200 dinners or getting a little bit of rent money or something. And I said, I believe this is a political distraction. I said this first hour, start of the show. I said, I believe this is a political distraction because they always love to use petty things to get control of Parliament. The MI5, MI6 has admittedly been spying illegally on Parliament. You have the shadow, illegitimate Queen's government trying to control the Parliament to do these unpopular things. You're saying, I didn't know this, you're saying they've caught intelligence people stealing it to use it as dirt on them. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this guy is John Wick. I mean, this is private security companies. Obviously, when people retire from special forces, they set up often these like little private investigator-style agencies. And, why is this guy, John Wick, not on the headlines instead of the MPs? I mean, clearly what's going on here is that the MPs are being dirtied up in rather a tacky fashion in order to distract attention from the billions and trillions that the bankers have run off with. And, of course, MPs are our representatives. They're the front line against the bankers. And they're the ones who have been being dirtied up here. And I think, the implication here is that the security services, either MI5, MI6, somebody like that, is also working with this guy. But, what are private intelligence agencies?
Well, they always use Visor Consultancy to run the drills, with the former head PR guy from Scotland Yard. He runs the drills at the exact same time, exact same places as the bus and the trains are bombed on the morning of 7/7 at the exact same time. It's always private intelligence agencies. Quote, you're going to start a private group, and then that's the public payoff they can then make because it's just a private group doing security, and the government's giving you a paycheck, but instead of making £60,000 a year, you're now making £150,000 a year, to carry these operations out. So my instincts were right about that. Tony, I'm glad we talked to you from the UK along that line. But absolutely, anytime I see a report about a politician that's got a crooked toenail, while meanwhile massive crimes are going on, we know what it is. Another parallel example of this is they took almost all the IRS agents off of billionaires 10 years ago and put them not just on middle class, people making $100,000 a year. They put it on blue-collar people who literally might just owe a few $1,000s. And so not only did they cut the amount of agents, they put the investigators on the very poorest, which, of course, would bring back the least amount of money, and cut all the white-collar investigators across the government. So, I mean, you really see it, how they go after some poor auto mechanic who can't even, pay his trailer bill, but some billionaire can openly steal everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really good week, actually, for investigative journalism here, and it's lovely to see, because we've been living through a crisis of investigative journalism with all these newspapers, TV stations, radio stations, etc., cutting all of their journalistic budgets. Another story that's come out this week, stop me if you've already been over this, Alex, but it's 5 Muslim community workers here in Britain have accused MI5 of waging a campaign of blackmail and harassment in an attempt to recruit them as informants. So, basically what they're saying is MI5 are going to these Muslim community workers and saying, either work for us or we're going to say you're a terrorist. We're going to put you on the list, we're going to follow you and possibly arrest you too.
Yeah, we're going to send you to Guantanamo Bay. I did see that, and Bob Chapman covered it last hour, but, we could talk for days about it. It's so important. Okay. All right, but Tony Gosling.
Yeah, I'm just making the point, really, that, investigative journalism seems to almost have kind of got a bit of a revival the last couple of weeks. I've seen some fantastic stuff out there, and I think we'll be seeing more in the future.
Absolutely. I mean, the corruption's right out in the open. If we all just stand up together, we can overthrow this thing very quickly. Tony, or I could call you Charlie, thanks for joining us.
Due to recent events related to the H1N1 virus, the Center for Disease Control has issued